Hey, this is Chris at Rekkid Talk, doing another episode of Ranking Albums. Today we are going to tackle the studio output of Sleater-Kinney. Of course, I am currently holding up a non-studio album. This is Live in Paris. This was from the reunion tour. That was in Paris, France, not Paris, Tennessee. I don't think they played Paris, Tennessee. They did play Nashville, Tennessee on this tour because I did see that show. So Sleater-Kinney got their start in the early to mid 1990s. They were kind of part of the uh, Olympia, Washington riot-grrrl scene. So the two main singers, guitar players, songwriters in the band, Corin Tucker and Carrie Brownstein, had met while they were students at Evergreen State College. You may know Carrie from as one of the stars of Portlandia. Um, but um, and so their earlier output definitely has sort of that riot-grrrl punky aesthetic to it. You'll see less of that on the more recent albums. First album came out in 1995. The most recent one came out this year. 10 albums over 26 years. Keep in mind there was a period of almost 10 years when the band was on hiatus between 2005 and 2015. So let's get into the ranking. Number 10, The Center Won't Hold. This was from 2019. I have the expensive Vinyl Me Please version of this. This album sucks. I'm sorry. I love Sleater-Kinney, but I don't like this album. And this is not a very contrarian viewpoint. A lot of the fan base didn't like this album. They're trying to be experimental. They're trying to sound less like Sleater-Kinney. I get it. You're trying to be creative. You're trying to change things. They had St. Vincent as their producer. On paper, that sounded like a great idea. In practice, not such a great idea. And unfortunately, their longtime great drummer, Janet Weiss, this was her final album. She didn't like it. She didn't like the way things were going. I've heard some stories of maybe it was not the cleanest breakup ever. And I think Janet no longer being in Sleater-Kinney definitely is a loss. My number 9 is going to be, oh, look, you can still see the price tag on there. Sleater-Kinney, Call the Doctor. This was their second record from 1996 on the Chainsaw label. What label was Center to Hold On? I should mention the various labels that they've been on over the years. I should have been more prepared. Mom and pop music, so I think that's basically their own. You can see the album I don't like is on Pretty Vinyl. Okay, Call the Doctor, their second record. This was the last record before they got Janet. I think they had different drummers on both of the first two albums. Janet's a great drummer, so the drumming's not quite up to snuff yet. The production on this is pretty weak. I Want to Be Your Joey Ramone is a pretty cool song, probably the best song from this. Number 8, I'm going to go with the most recent album. This is the 2021 Path of Wellness. So this is the first album where they're no longer a trio. There's actually a bass player. Sleater-Kinney was always known for not having a bass guitar. Carrie would play lead guitar. Corin would play rhythm guitar, sort of a down-tuned instrument, so she was sort of playing the role of the bass player. I've got the pretty white vinyl. Was this another yeah, this is another Mom and Pop Records. Path of Wellness, and the first song, it's kind of a cringy title. Doesn't feel very riot-grrrl to me. Some of the other songs are better. I mean, it's definitely a step up from The Center Won't Hold, but it's certainly not going to rank in my favorite Sleater-Kinney albums. My number 7 is the debut album, the self-titled Sleater-Kinney, 1995. Chainsaw Records from Portland, Oregon. I should mention they're really based in Portland, although Carrie and Corin had met in Olympia when they were in college. So again, pretty raw, basic production. I think I think this actually works better than Call the Doctor, just because it's just sort of that first album out. But there were certainly better things to come. And then like these last 6 albums, so I think The Center Won't Hold, the number 10 is way the worst. And then the new album, maybe it'll grow on me when I hear it more. And the first 2 are kind of the next tier. And then these last 6 albums I think are all great. So we're going to show Dig Me Out from 1997. This was the first album that they had Janet Weiss on. Dig Me Out, the title song is one of their classic songs. This is on their first one time on Kill Rock Stars, sort of that classic Olympia label. The Drama You've Been Craving, One More Hour, Dance Song 97. And so I think this was definitely a step up from the first couple of albums. Number 5, so the next album after Dig Me Out was called The Hot Rock from 1999. There they are. They're hailing a cab in Portland. This is also on Kill Rock Stars. The End of You is a great song. Banned from the End of the World. And so this and Dig Me Out are pretty close. I think Dig Me Out's probably a better song than any of the songs on the Hot Rock, but the Hot Rock probably is a bit of a stronger album. And then the last 4 are really going to be the ones I like. So my number 4 is going to be No Cities to Love. This was the reunion album when they came off of hiatus in 2015. Was this on? I'm trying to remember if this was on which label this was on. I have a black. I don't have it. Yeah, this was on Sub Pop. So this is the final album they did on Sub Pop Records, and so they'd been away from 10 years. They really came back pretty strong. Price Tag's a great song. A New Wave, Give Me Love. I do find that this album, and especially the next 2 that came after, which both rated pretty low, I find probably more Carrie on vocals. Sleater-Kinney has always been sort of distinctive for sort of the dual vocals, trading back and forth or singing together. But at least on the earlier albums, especially the albums I prefer, tended to be more Corin a bit more in terms of vocals than Carrie. And I think Corin is a better vocalist, although I think Carrie is the better guitar player. So No Cities to Love, 2015, my number 4. My number 3 is going to be what I think is generally considered to be their number 1 album by lots of people. This is Sleater-Kinney, The Woods from 2005. So this was the final album before they went on hiatus. If you know the song Jumpers or Modern Girl, those both came from this particular record. This was another Sub Pop release by them. And so The Woods 2005 is my number 3. Many people would call it their number 1. I probably rate this one higher than most of the lists I've seen, but my number 2 Sleater-Kinney album is All Hands on the Bad One. I think that's just such a cool picture. This is from the year 2000. There they are on the back. The Ballad of a Lady Man, Ironclad, All Hands on the Bad One. You're No Rock and Roll Fun. There's a lot of rock and roll fun going on. Number 1 Must Have, Milkshake and Honey. I think this is a very, very strong album. I think this one tends to get underrated, where maybe The Woods and No Cities to Love might be slightly overrated. And finally, my favorite Sleater-Kinney album is Sleater-Kinney One Beat from 2002. This was their final album on Kill Rock Stars. This came out about a year after 9/11, so there's definitely some things related to the politics of the time, the social situation of the time. But you've got One Beat, Oh, Light Rail Coyote, um, Sympathy, the final song on the album, maybe one of the just most heartrending, strong Sleater-Kinney songs ever. Uh, and this was the first album where I really got into the band. And then I had heard some of their stuff before, but I had not paid a lot of attention. Really loved this album, One Beat. Dug back into the stuff like All Hands on the Bad One and The Hot Rock and Dig Me Out, and then continued following them from there. So there's my, again, we'll do a quick recap. Number 10, The Center Won't Hold from 2019. Number 9, Call the Doctor, 1996. Number 8, Path of Wellness, 2021. Number 7, Sleater-Kinney, self-titled debut, 1995. Number 6, Dig Me Out, 1997. Number 5, The Hot Rock, 1999. Number 4, No Cities to Love, 2015. Number 3, The Woods, 2005. Number 2, All Hands on the Bad One, 2000. And my favorite Sleater-Kinney record is One Beat from 2002.